Okay, the first thing that I want to do is I just want to get us all present because most of us in our life, to get somewhere, we have to do some efforting, get things done so we can set aside whatever time we're choosing. This is the time that we're all setting aside for ourselves and to be with each other. So let's just close our eyes for a minute. And just feel yourself sitting wherever you are, and feel yourself just present to your own presence. Notice that you have thoughts. Oh, Ahalya's saying this, or let's get on with it, or, my leg hurts, whatever. Just let it all go and just be present. And notice that you're, just imagine that your crown, where the crown chakra is, just opens up, and you feel your connection. You feel the energy coming down through your whole center, going out the bottom of your feet and down to Mother Earth. And you feel the energy of Mother Earth coming up through your feet, grounding you and connecting you to practicality, to groundedness, to being present. You feel the connection of Source opening you up to possibility, to growing, expanding, transcending, and having the experience of joy. And just imagine that those two energies mix within you so that you're really present to who you are and where you stand in the universe. Just feel yourself just present, letting go of everything, but just being here right now. Just here right now. Wonderful. So when you're ready, just come back to consciousness and open your eyes and take your time. Good. So now we're all together. We've let go of everything to get us here. It's a good day. So I heard you talking about what the lesson was today, and it is this is our third higher self circle, and I love the higher self circle because it just gets us together to expand maybe our way of seeing something or thinking, and being with like-minded souls that just want to share and be together. So the first time we met was the first law of spiritual alchemy that said, I always read it because I want to be sure that I don't just paraphrase it. When you change the way that you're looking at something, that something that you are looking at changes. So we talked about that. And the second law that we did last time was, you see what you believe. And both of those things are really the truth. And if you just took one of them and just worked on that your whole life, you wouldn't have to learn any other sutra. You would learn everything that you need to know about yourself, your place in the world, how to live your life fully present, and just transform yourself. But this is the world of and the time of information. So we human beings, we have to grab something else because we're sure if we grab something else, that'll be the thing. So this thing today is the third law. And the third law says, if you want to change for the better, you cannot stay the way you are. And that has a little bit different energy than, well, you see what you believe. So if you want to change for the better, you cannot stay the way you are. And that's, I think that's a less, what did I say? It's a more exacting way of saying the statement that we hear so many times from Einstein that says, if you keep doing what you've always done and you keep getting what you've always got, that's the definition of insanity. And we know that. We tell ourselves that all the time, right? Oh my God, I'm still doing that and I'm still getting that, and that's not what I want. So the answer to that is that if we want to change for the better, we just can't stay where we are. There's something about us that has to change. And it doesn't even have to be a big thing. But the first thing is to understand that if there's something in our life that is not working for us, it can be anything, and it can be all of them. It can be a relationship, it can be a career, it can be money, it can be health, whatever. We could take any of those things and work on it. And if we took one small thing and realize that this thing that I'm sitting in my life is not what I want, it's really not what I want to experience. However, I have been being the way that I've been being, and this is the result of it, what I'm sitting in right now in this thing. So if I don't want to continue sitting in this thing, this bad relationship or poor health or whatever it is, if I don't want to keep sitting in that thing, then logic tells me that probably I need to do something different. There's something that I need to change about me. It's not a judgment. It's not about fixing yourself. It's just about a result that you want. If there's a result that you want and you're not getting it, then there's something that you're doing. And when I say doing, I'm also talking about thinking and feeling, because those three things go together. There's something going on there in my consciousness that I need to change so that I can change my doing and my feeling, which will give me a different result, which is what I say I want. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So can you think of anything? You don't have to share, number one, on this, and you don't have to share anything more than, if you do want to share, just share at your comfort level. Is there anything that you've been thinking about that you recognize when I just said all this, you went, oh yeah, there's that thing. I'd like that thing to be different. I thought it was not my fault. I thought it was, the government or my family or my boss or whatever. And maybe that's not so. It's not to say that all of those things don't play a part, but then we go back to the other laws, that you see what you believe, and you have to change the way that you're looking at something for it to change, for something to change in your life. So if you can think of something that you would like to change, then the next step is to consider, what is it that I could change doing? A simple one, which I think everybody, unless they're a natural, have never gained a pound, people who've gained weight, they want to lose weight, but they don't want to stop eating French fries and ice cream at night. That's a simple thing, but you know, it is something that you do. If you want something different, you do have to change something, right? That's a simple thing. But sometimes the simpler something is, the harder it is to do. And the more we know about something that we should do and we don't do it, the harder it is to do it. That's actually comes out of psychology, that the longer that we know what's something to do and we don't do it, the harder it is to do it. Like when it's a new, fresh idea, we go, oh, yeah, I can try this. But most of us are so informed because of the information age and Google that we say, oh, yeah, I know that. But we don't do it and we don't change it. And then nothing changes. I know that I've had big experiences with that. And it's always proven true that if I wanted something to change, then something about me had to change. I saw you laughing, Nalini. Why?
Well, when you were asking about something specific in our lives that we want to change, everything that came up in my mind, I have some ambivalence about. So the diet one was a good example, but that's where I find like I'll get stuck is I want this to happen, but I don't want to do this. So it kind of just gets held there.
Yeah. Yes, but you know, it's a true thing that when usually it's something that we want to change is some kind of creates some kind of discomfort in our life, some kind of disempowerment. And when we get miserable enough with that, that's when we change. So you don't have to beat yourself up. You just keep being aware that there's something that that you want to be different. So when you think about something that you would like to be different in your life, something that you would like to be different about you, you don't beat yourself up about it. You just notice. And it is a natural law that the more we become aware of something, the shifts begin to happen. It's awareness that creates the shifts. We don't think so because human beings, I don't know if they've always been this way, but these days, because it's the information age, people just think they know so much. And they know about so much because we can Google anything, right? We can't guarantee you're getting the right answers coming up, but we'll get an answer. We can get anything that we want in an answer. However, if we really notice something that we want to change, and the more we notice it and the more we notice it, eventually the shifts will happen. It might take a while, or you can grab hold of it and look at the 3 spiritual laws of spiritual alchemy. I want to read a story. I was looking for something, and this is the story I found. There is a book. I meant to pull it out, and I'm just looking at my bookcase to see if I can see it. It's called The Flowering Tree. Maybe you have it, Nalini. Maybe you can show it. Anyway, I just don't see it. Anyway, it's a wonderful book. It's been out of print for years. I used to peruse before the internet secondhand shops and pick them up. It's a book by a woman named Gladys V. Knight. Yeah. And she was a clairvoyant. not a psychic, a clairvoyant. And one of the greatest services she does is in her introduction, she explains the difference. So a clairvoyant looks at you as a soul and your soul growth and your soul's journey. And she recorded many of her readings for people, and they were so beautiful and so universal that she put them in a book. Do you have the book? Oh, well, that's not very interesting, The Flowering Tree. It has a white cover with a tree on it if you get a cover. Anyway, it's a very good book. I want to read this. It's called The Book of Corrections. And this reading that she did for somebody, really, it applies to all of us, and it applies to us in this conversation. She says, she's speaking to the person that she's reading for. You are pictured as standing in the library of an old monastery before a huge open book, which slants upward on a carved wooden standard. As you glance at the open page, it seems to tell stories of human lives. The pages are marked and blotched. Words are scratched out, and other words and phrases have been written in. You turn the other pages and you realize this huge book seems to be a record of the poor, mediocre, and top performances of those who have lived on earth. Most of the pages contain blots and erasures, and some phrases have been completely effaced. Many have corrections between the lines and in the margins, and some seem to have been hastily but accurately made. A number of the records are so full of human error that extra pages listing human errata are attached to them. To see such a record, which symbolizes the mistakes of humanity, seems to weigh you down ponderously. And when you realize then that each page had numerous corrections, substitutions, and revisions, and all who wrote seemed to have made the effort to keep the record exact and true. As you step away from the book, you notice a monk standing by, and you say to him, "It seems as if no one has a perfect record. Nearly every page has blots upon it, and every record has changes and corrections. This is disappointing to know." I just thought that the records of men were better, and they were better kept, and not so soiled and filled with corrections. A gentle, reflective smile appears on the face of the monk, and he says, "But it is these errors which make the book so priceless." Do you have my story here? No, you have not lived all of your life yet. You touch the pages of the book saying, "I suppose mine will be like these two, with blots and mistakes and the changes and improvements I have made in myself written in." You do not want to make mistakes, do you? No, I do not. But the residue coming from mistakes, from mistake making, is a corrective for man. It is not always punitive in nature unless man interprets it in that fashion. You turn to him, your eyes glowing large with surprise, and say questioningly, "Mistake making?" "Yes, my child. Can it be that you think these whose lives are recorded here learn nothing from their mistakes? Oh, that is a fine way to look at the matter, but people do not like to make mistakes." "Ah, but they always will. They have always made mistakes, and that is how they learn. You recall events in the lives of those whom you've known and wondered if they had learned where they erred. You review your own life and think that if you had done this or that, matters might have been different for you. You say to the monk, but I have always wanted to keep a nice, clean page. All these people wish that too. Everyone wants a clean sheet, but every erasure and rectification indicates the good which has come out of the conflict involving each record in the book. So the more the page is soiled and blemished, the more indicative it is of the struggle for good which occurred in the life. As the monk talks to you in this manner, you see the purpose behind human effort and think about those who live upon earth are indeed the victims of their own human natures. That we are sometimes very far from the state of immortals seems obvious. Nonetheless, with time and endless practice, we may attain higher states and be free forever from our imperfect natures. Now you are pictured back upon the earth on your own path. Although you are most thoughtful because of what you have learned, you are also very happy and want to share a little of this new knowledge with others. You see someone coming down the road of life. It is an older woman, and she is heavily burdened and bent. You go to her and you say, do you know what I've just learned? I learned the value of making mistakes. The woman answers, well, that is good. I have certainly made plenty of them. And she goes on her way without further conversation. Then you see an old man coming in the distance. Wait until he reaches you and say to him, how have you felt about making human mistakes? Well, at times I felt very badly about it. It was very upsetting to me. Why shouldn't I have been upset? Yes, I think you should have been, for that is part of it too. And he goes on his way. Now you see two lovers coming along arm in arm, much in love with each other, living in their own exclusive world because they are interested only in themselves. They do not see you, but you stop them and say, are you going to go down the same old road of people who have made mistakes? The young man looking down the road says, we're not going to make mistakes. Not any mistakes, are we? The girl smiles at him and says, no, we are never going to make any mistakes. They leave you, and as you watch them continue on their way, you wonder how long it will be before they make their first one. Since they look at each other in such an absorbed fashion, they do not see the ground, and thus do not see a large tree which has fallen across the path. As they walk into it, both fall to the ground, and the woman seems injured. When she attempts to rise, she finds she cannot do it, but they sit upon the tree for a time and rest. Then he lifts her in his arms and carries her some distance, but before long he tires and they both drop by the roadside, wondering what to do. As you watch them, you say to yourself, they have already made their first mistake. A little boy comes along the path. He's whistling and seems to be a happy little boy. You say to yourself, surely he has not made any mistakes. He's too young, so there's no use telling him what I've learned. But as he whistles, you suddenly hear sour notes and you laugh and you say to him, you have just made a mistake. I did not. I like to whistle that way. Well, it's prettier the other way, and you whistle the tune correctly. He says humbly, I did do it wrong, didn't I? Before many years have passed, you will be a young man. How are you going to feel about making mistakes if you start making them so early in life? Oh, I'm just a little boy. I'm not going to worry about making mistakes yet. Well, if you're not careful, you will form the habit of making mistakes when you are young, and you won't be able to break this habit when you grow up. Well, I see my parents make mistakes all the time and it doesn't bother them, so it doesn't bother me. And he turns from you and goes whistling on his way. You think about how like youth to be so innocent and unaware of the future demands to be made upon them, and so oblivious to the fact that the laws of life are strict and irrevocable about mistakes made deliberately or inadvertently. But now you know that man is transformed by his efforts to rectify the mistakes he has made. either great or small, and thus making mistakes serve a great purpose in the lives of all. I hope you like that story. I do. But we don't call them mistakes. I don't. That would be a terrible burden. I call them experiences. And you learn from your experiences and you try to repeat the ones that were good and helpful and useful and empowering. And you learn from all of them. And you can learn what to do and what not to do. But when you're correcting what this story called mistakes, and I prefer to call experiences, when you're correcting that, that's when you change the thing about you so that you quit creating the thing that you don't want to create. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. Comments, complaints, anything you want to change? Yes, Nalini.
Well, you mentioned earlier before that when something becomes painful enough, you'll make the change. And the experience that I have, or the one that I'm thinking about specifically right now, is I kind of oscillate between it being like very painful, and then I'll put a lot of efforting in, and then it's not so painful anymore, and I kind of get into what feels like a slump where it's just like almost a numbness to that pain. Like I kind of talk myself out of making the change because I tried something and it didn't really work. So I'm just like, I guess this is what it is then.
Well, that one is pretty obvious. We are a world of instant gratification and instant results. And so the idea that something doesn't work immediately is disheartening. And so we say it doesn't work, but we just haven't done it long enough. Or maybe you're just not as unhappy with the thing that you think you are. But your awareness of whatever it is that you are dissatisfied with or want to, when your awareness of it is, it's not going to go away. You can stuff it for a while, but it's going to resurface. And it'll resurface until you do something about it or you die. If you want to change for the better, you cannot stay the way you are. If you think about that, what can you discover? Look, there's a teaching that says, you know, whatever I say the universe, but some people might say God or whatever. But the universe is always giving us hints about things. Taps on the shoulder. You need to change this. You need to do something about this. And we ignore it. And the taps get harder, and then eventually maybe you get hit over the head with something. I know people that I knew they needed to leave the position they were in. They really knew it, but they couldn't do it, and then they got fired. And then they could get on with their life. But the universe had been talking to them forever. I, for one, had to take a real lump on the head. I got lots of hints, and then I had open heart surgery. Things just happen because we don't listen. We don't hear the hints that the universe gives us, the guidance, which is what we really get from our higher self. It's your higher self that has your wisdom, but we don't know. It takes time to learn how to listen to that, to get past the all the mind stuff. But yes, Nalini?
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about, hearing the wisdom from your higher self about something that needs to change in your life versus fixing yourself, or like almost being obsessed with like changing yourself.
Yeah, that's a terrible burden to embrace, is trying to fix yourself and push to fix yourself, instead of learning to love yourself and learning to listen to your own inner wisdom. So your higher self or inner self has a lot of different terms, but it's the greater wisdom part of you. And that greater wisdom part of you, the terms that we all have a spark of God, that God dwells within you as you, those kinds of terms, those are really spiritual terms. I know they're used in religion, but that's not it can be a religious concept, but I'm talking about it in terms of a broader, more spiritual concept, that we do have a wisdom inside of us. And statements like "you already are the Buddha," or "you already," whatever, all of those things are true. But we have our humanness to get through in order to experience that. But the higher self part of us is always attached to universal, to the source, to all that is, to the greatest wisdom, which some people might call God, that have a personal God. I just say, source, or the universe. It's that greater power. And that part of us is inside of us. And it takes time to build that relationship with that part so that you can, listen to your own guidance with confidence. But your higher self is never going to have judgment. And it's never going to say you need to fix you. It's only going to be empowering, because that is what it is empowering. So if you're trying to fix you, you are creating a relationship with your unhealthy or weak ego, and not your higher self. So it's the higher self part of you that really does have your wisdom. It really does have your wisdom. And it takes time to develop that. to find your own answers. That's one of the things, that's what going on a path is meant to do for you, whatever path you take, something that's, doesn't have a lot of dogma and restrictions. It's just empowering, will teach you that, how to find your own wisdom. That's why I like, that's actually why I developed shamanism, self-mastery and shamanism, because we all have the ability to transform ourselves, to develop our own self-mastery. I'm not talking about mastery of a talent or a skill. I'm talking about having mastery where you are a very clear human being. We all have that ability, but it takes work, and most people really don't want to do the work, but we all have that ability. And the reason I created self-mastery and shamanism is because shamanism teaches you that it in a different language, but it's talking about tapping into your own wisdom, finding your own wisdom, learning to get your own answers, which is very important. And usually you need somebody to kind of guide you through that for a while. But the point of having a guide is to guide you to the place where you're there. Is that what you wanted me to share, Nalini? Okay. Any comments or questions? Yes, Sharon. Oh, I think you're on mute. Okay.
Am I all right now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have found over the many years that I've lived that what I think of when you were talking was, I refer to as my inner voice. And establishing trust with your inner voice is kind of the key point to hopping over into that bigger experience, because the times that my inner voice has told me something and I used my head, didn't turn out so well. And I knew it wasn't going to turn out so well, but I did it anyway because I thought it was more logical. But no, it's my inner voice that I have finally learned. If my inner voice says something to me, I jolly well better, follow it.
That's great wisdom. It's true. It takes practice to learn to trust it. It does, and the more that you trust it and you validate your experience, then the more you'll trust it.
Yeah.
And that's the point of, that's really the point of transformation. That's the point of becoming a clear human being, is that you have that inner voice that is really, it's really truth. It has nothing to do with ego, but it just takes time to learn to listen to it. So good job. Keep it up.
I'm getting pretty old, so.
Oh, I don't think so.
Lots of experience there. The other thing that I wanted to say was, when you're trying to make a change in your life and move on to a different path that would be better for you, sometimes when you're having difficulty doing it, I think it's because there's something working for you, even though it doesn't seem like it's working for you. There's some need that you're fulfilling in that first path. And if you can figure out what that is and meet that need in a different way, you can move on to change.
So if I understand you, you're saying that sometimes when you're trying to change a path, I imagine that is in almost any category in life.
Right.
Yeah, relationship, job, or spiritual path, right?
Yes.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yes.
And there's something that you're not, something is not allowing you to change.
Right. Right. You're not being able to switch from that path. On some level, even though you probably don't realize it, what you're doing is on some level meeting a need that maybe you don't even know you have.
Well, that definitely could be true. And the other part of that could be true. It could be true that you're just not complete yet. It's, my students they've learned to enjoy it, that I tell them very often my answer is it's complicated and it's a mystery.
And that's the best answer.
Yeah. But it's true that you could, well, obviously you are getting something. Whether it's something you really need or not is another question, but that's not the point. The point is, obviously you're not quite complete with it, but you will be. You definitely will be. That's how it works. We're guided all the time. And we change when we're ready to change. And actually knowing why is what they call the booby prize. Knowing why we do something or something doesn't do a lot for us except explain ourselves. And we don't need an explanation. We just need to transform, to grow, I have known many people that will go to a training, or I don't know, have some kind of healing or something, learn something about themselves. And then instead of taking that and changing, they spend the rest of their life explaining why they're like they are and stay the same. So that's not what this conversation is about, and that's not what you're talking about. And the bottom line is, when it's time for you to change, you will change. Thank you very much for that, Sharon.
Thank you.
Nalini?
In the practitioner circle, you talked about how healings could help end cycles. Like if you're coming up to a cycle you're working on completing, like healings could help. I'm wondering if there's anything else that you could highlight that could help get you ready to be complete with something, or make that change you're looking to make.
Well, it's important not to get caught up in, I must change, I need to change, I can't figure it out, I need to know why I need to change, because that is only going to create not change. I talk about the healing sessions, like the clinic, because when you have, there's many things that you can do to assist yourself to grow as a human being, as a spiritual being that we all are, having a human experience. There's lots of things that we can do. And first of all, just being aware of something causes subtle shifts to start happening. When we do things like a healing session, and this can be in other healing sessions besides shamanism, I'm just talking about shamanism, but when you can remove, in shamanic healing, there's the main practice is to remove energy that you no longer need. It's energy that we pick up just being out in the world, just in relationship, thoughts, our feeling. And we can clear that away. It's like we have a better opportunity to breathe and to process something from a clearer point, a clearer reference point. If we're bogged down in concern or if we're just bogged down in energy, it's really hard to think. It's really hard to be creative. It's really hard to be positive. It's really hard to be into possibility. So if we can have a healing session of some kind and release some of that energy, which gives us space, that contributes to us being able to think more clearly and experience more authentically. Is that what you're talking about, Nalini? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I was just wondering, is there anything else that you can think of aside from healings?
Well,
I'm sure there's plenty, but I'm just looking for some answers, Gurudevi.
well, I think that anybody who is serious about, most of the world dabbles in things, but I think it's a good idea to choose something to practice for a while and see how that works for you. I think being around like-minded people that have these conversations as opposed to mundane things constantly is more empowering. So, it's like hang out with people that empower you in being able to see you in your being and your becoming. That's really the kind of people you want to hang out with. People who can see you, you're really a cool being and I appreciate you. And I also see your becoming. I see you getting more. And you want friends that can see you that way. So you do that. There's a lot of things to do. But mostly I think the thing that's always helped me the most was having some kind of guide that just guided me to my own wisdom. And that just helps you, however you find that. I don't know if this answered you, but that's like a big question.
Yes, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. I can see that we're getting close to the end. Does anybody have any question or comments before we do a meditation? I did a good job or I bored you. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to do a short drumming for you. And then when I'm through with the drumming and bring you out of it, I hope you stay on and Nalini will just share some things that we're doing that you might be interested in. And remember, if you want to change for the better, you cannot stay the way you are. But be kind to yourself and enjoy the ride. And there's two sayings that I love. There's a lot of sayings I love, but one of them is that everything is right on time. I love that. And in my experience, it's proven accurate. And the other one is everything is okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. So off or on, Nalini? On, right?
On. You got it.
Okay, if everybody just, get comfortable and close your eyes. And when you hear the beat of the drum, just allow it to soothe you and cause you to go inside. Good. Something wonderful is about to happen. Just take your time to bring yourself back to conscious state of awareness, and take your time opening your eyes. Just, there's no rush. So I can't see everybody, but I hope everybody's back. So I'm going to go now, and then if you just take a minute, Nalini will share some things that I hope you, you'd be interested in. I want to thank you. This was such a joy to spend the time with you. I'm really honored, and I love sharing a space like this with great beings like you. So thank you very much, and I hope you join us next month or whatever. And also, if you want to contact me for anything, you can contact me through support at the Mystery School. Nalini will give you that. But anyway, thank you guys very much. Have a wonderful Sunday. Love you so much. Bye-bye.
Hey guys. Yeah, thank you all for joining today. This last Sunday of the month, the Higher Self Circle is one of my favorite days each month. So we do this Higher Self Circle the last Sunday every month. And then we have a shamanic healing clinic on the second Tuesday of each month that is also over Zoom. And the clinic is private one-on-one sessions. They're extraction healings, which is one of the components of shamanic healing. It's about half-hour sessions. They go from 6:30 to 8:30 at night on that second Tuesday every month. And then something that I'm pretty excited about is we are starting a mentoring group in October, on October 2nd, which is a Monday. And that mentoring group will be for up to 6 people, and it's going to be 6 weeks long. So that's just a little bit more in depth in learning and training, and Ahalya will be the one leading those mentoring groups. So pretty excited about that. I think that was everything that I wanted to cover. And thank you all so much for joining again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your month, and we hope to see you again on the last Sunday next month. Thank you.